In the previous video, you learned how to make a simple video in Sony Vegas Pro. One important aspect I did not touch on was adding text to a video. Text can be useful for all sorts of situations, whether it's to add steps for tutorials or simply to add titles. Vegas can do more than simply throw words on a screen. You can use transitions, change opacity levels, and even get creative and add background colors, shadows, and movements. First, adding text to the timeline. With Vegas Pro opened and with your video all set for text, the first thing you want to do is to add text to the timeline. Just like with video files and audio files, right-click on the timeline and select Insert Text Media. You now have the option to make the text as long or as short as you want by clicking and dragging on the left or right sides. You can click in the middle of this bar and drag it on the timeline. Scroll the mouse wheel up or down to zoom in or zoom out of the timeline. Here's a tip. Make sure the text is placed above any other video files on the timeline, otherwise it will be hidden. Second, adding text. Next thing to do is to click on this icon here, known as the Generate Media icon. This allows you to add your text. You can choose the font, the size, color, and so on. With all these options to your liking, and with your text added, you can now do some additional work with it. Third, text tips. To fade text in or out, click on the top corners of either side of the text on the timeline bar and drag it. To change opacity levels, click the top of the timeline bar and drag it down. To enable shadows, click on the Generate Media icon, go down to Shadows, click on the arrow, check Enable Shadows. You can change the color, the placement, and the blur level using these options. To add outlines to the text, click on the Generate Media icon, go down to Outline, click on the arrow, adjust the outline width using this option, and change the color with the second option. To transition text, much like anything else in Vegas Pro, you can take two pieces of media, click and drag one into the other. The less space here, the quicker the transition. Dragging it further in makes the transition longer. You can also have two pieces of text media side by side, and go into the transition options. Find one you like, click and drag it into the timeline, and place it between the two pieces. Fourth, custom backgrounds. You can add a little more flair to your text by adding some sort of background to make it stand out from the video files. Outlines and shadows are nice, but using other tools like Paint can help create a special border behind the text. For example, in Paint, I will make a long image, add a single color, save it as a JPEG, then I can go into Vegas Pro and import that image. On the timeline here, I make sure it's below the text. Next, I right-click on the image file, change the property settings, unclick Maintain Aspect Ratio, and select OK. Next, click on the crop icon, and use these lines to adjust the size. Make it so it fits right behind the text like this. Of course, if you want to have longer text, you can customize this background to fit more like a square or rectangle, or whatever size you decide. You can change the opacity for this as well, so that the color isn't too distracting. There may be other ways to make a custom background like this, but this is just a way I always found simple enough. Hope this video was helpful and you learned a thing or two about adding text to Sony Vegas Pro.